Hi, I'm Sean Spratt. I'm the winemaker for Destiny Bay Wines, and today we're talking about the 2022 vintage, which will be released to our patron members at the end of this year. And we wanted to just give you a summary of what the vintage was like and briefly talk about the three different wines. So 2022 was another great early vintage for us, very much in the vein of what we saw in 21, 20, and also 19 to a certain extent. What we have been seeing is as things have gotten sort of increasingly warmer with warmer winters, we're seeing much earlier bud burst. And part of this is a product of the La Nina conditions that were present throughout New Zealand, particularly in 2021 and 22. Also going up through 2023. We'll talk about that at the end. So what this led to is a record early bud burst for the 22 vintage in August. I think it was about the first or second week of August. We saw bud break. I never had seen it before. What this means is that our whole growing season essentially moves forward. It doesn't necessarily get shorter, just means that we're getting an early start, and an early start is going to be an early finish. Following on from that early bud burst, September was pretty normal. October actually was quite cool and wet, and we were a little unsure of what we were going to be looking at for that vintage. But November became very, very warm, very dry, not a lot of rain. Similar for December, and then January was hot and bone dry. The first time in my recollection, if ever, that we've made it through an entire January without a single rain event. So much so to the point that we actually became concerned whether we had to start thinking about water stress and how the vines were going to perform as they move into veraison, where the water demands go up substantially as the clusters and the berries start forming into developed grapes. But in early February, we did have a couple of brief and plentiful rain events, which was sort of perfect timing because that really helps meet those water demands and push the fruit through veraison at a fairly steady pace. The rest of February was hot and dry, and then March we were right into harvesting, and what actually led to one of the most compressed vintage schedules we've ever seen, where from the first pick, the first variety of the Merlot, to the final pick of the Cabernets happened within 10 days. So very busy time here in the winery, but made for some great wines and certainly no concerns about weather. So that gives you, I think, an overall snapshot of the vintage. Getting into the wines themselves, the first one that we've got is the 2022 Destinée. And with the higher proportions of the Merlot, and Malbec and Cabernet Sauvignon and Cabernet Franc. While this gives a good snapshot of how all the varieties are, it definitely tends to be a little bit more fruit expressive traditionally for Destinée, and I would certainly say this year is no exception in that regards. So we're still seeing some really sort of bright fruit notes. Berries, but there's still some lovely oak integration happening, and also just really, really quite expressive and floral as well. A little bit of graphite and pencil shavings on that, coming from the oak, but very quite seamless. Nothing really showing up between the French oak, which gives some structure and some savoriness, versus the American oak, which gives it some, lovely length and support of the fruit and a finish. So overall, looking very much like Destiny, but quite rich, quite definitely, a very attractive and approachable Destiny, even at this young age. Coming on to the Mistake, not as is sort of fruit forward and expressive, but we are getting some more of these floral notes that we see with the Cabernets, and particularly we're seeing some violet, some elderflower notes, just a little bit of hint of pepper there coming in from some of the Cabernet characteristics. A bit more drive, a bit more depth. There's almost like a character of starting to get into maybe some sweet tar, some of these richer, sort of riper characters that I think are going to lend well to long-term aging and how this wine is going to, develop in the 10+ year time frame. But yeah, certainly looking really attractive, and still approachable at this age as well. Finally, coming on to the Magna Premia, this one, my particular note is that it does show a little bit more density of color because we do have a lot of really great Cabernet, very ripe Cabernet coming into this. There is a little bit of, again, some of this molasses or tobacco note there, but just great depth on the palate, good concentration. But underneath that, there's also some really lovely herbal characters that are sort of more in the lavender or thyme category. So just sitting underneath it, backed up, backing up that those fruit notes, so that we're really starting to see a lot of different complexity and a range of different flavors to come through there. So all in all, these wines are looking fantastic. Each one sort of sitting in its own place, with the Destiny being more fruit driven, the Mistake being a bit more of a traditional blend that really sits in the middle. And of course, we're really leaning into the Cabernet with the Magna Premia here. This, of course, is going to be the last wine that you're going to see for us for until the 2024 vintage, because in 2023, La Nina became a more traditional La Nina, which led to widespread flooding across the country. Auckland had historic flooding. Hawke's Bay suffered horribly, and our quality was simply not up to the standard. So we made the difficult and painful decision in 23 not to produce a single bottle of wine. However, we've just finished up the 24 vintage, and it is looking stunning. We are so excited about it. A cool season to the finish, really balanced. I think it's going to be a very exciting wine. So we'll be showing that to you in due course. And as always, if you have questions about the wines and want to know more, just reach out to us. We're always happy to answer questions. Thanks a lot.